Okay, almost a year ago, I told you about a report from the Pentagon, an affiliate who warned of a possible financial terrorist attack that was taking place in the United States. The author of this report, Kevin Freeman, was trying to get the message out to the public to warn them about the dangers of this. The mainstream media, they weren't interested at all. They're, you know, I mean, it was out for what, I think 2 days. It was like a 2-second story. We were finally able to connect with Kevin because a friend of ours, a retired Lieutenant General, Jerry Boykin, who will be on the show on Thursday, knew that we would listen and take the threat seriously. He is finally here. Kevin, how are you, sir?
I'm very well. I'm happy to be here.
Kevin Freeman, he's the author of Secret Weapon, How Economic Terrorism Brought Down the U.S. Stock Market and Why It Can Happen Again. This is his first TV interview on this book, and it is important that you listen to the warnings here. First of all, you heard what I just said about MF Global and everything else. You are an econ guy. I'm just kind of I'm trying to figure it out on my own. Am I in the ballpark? Was there anything that needed to be corrected there?
You're in the ballpark. These are all very serious problems, and they're unprecedented problems for our generation.
You said when you walked on the set that SEAL Team 6 found an important document.
They did, and it's not been reported out much. It was in the German press, and there was barely a mention on the U.S. I mentioned it on my blog, but they found a document where Osama bin Laden had a strategy to destroy the economies of Europe, and it predates the economic crisis in Europe.
And what was the strategy? Does it look familiar?
I don't know, but I know this. In 1999, 2 Chinese colonels wrote a book, Unrestricted Warfare, and they talked about the strategies of George Soros and combining them with Osama bin Laden. So I believe that it was a bear raid strategy. That's what we've seen happen in Greece. That's what we've seen happen across the European continent.
People will ask, and I want to get into the what, where, why, how, but I want to start here because I think this is important. That people will say, they say this to me all the time, George Soros, he wants to make money. Why would he do this? Can you explain?
Well, you know, he's made plenty of money, and he's got more money than most of us would ever imagine having. He wants to have an impact and change the world, and he wants to remake it in his image. You know, I had the opportunity, the pleasure of meeting Boone Pickens recently. He's a very successful man, and he gave $400 million or something to Oklahoma State University. It's not about making money. At one point in life, it comes to what you love and have a passion for.
Yeah, okay. And he's passionate about an open society, which everybody will dismiss as, oh, well, that's a nice thing. We all want an open society. That's not what he means. So let's go here on what happened in 2008. Your Pentagon report, I remember being on Fox and saying, this is important. And why is this being released now by a Pentagon official? Why? Why was it released? Do you know?
The bigger question is, why was it covered up to that point? And it did not make the light of day. I've been given 2 answers. One, it doesn't fit the narrative, the political narrative. And the second one is it doesn't fit our swimming lanes. It doesn't fit in the Pentagon. It doesn't fit in the Treasury Department. You know, I've probably given 200 briefings to 3-star generals, to the former head of the CIA, to the head of the DIA, to the FBI. You name the 3-letter agency, and I've talked to them. And it doesn't belong there. And there are some that are patriots that are just starting to get it.
So tell me what you say happened in the crash of 2008, because there was a huge amount of activity quickly by somebody was moving a large sums of money, and it may have been your report, but I think I've read it a couple of places, that it's only the size of a sovereign fund that could have done this. Only a country could have done this.
It was very rapid, it was very large, and it was complicated. It's naked short selling. But George Soros said in an interview, or actually an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal in March 2009, he said what happened. He said it was a bear raid against Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, AIG, Merrill Lynch. He explained exactly what it was. He didn't say who did it, and he didn't explain how they did it.
Could it have been just a bunch of people just saying, you know what, this just doesn't make sense, we should just sell? Could it have been that? I mean, can it only be really truly explained as somebody orchestrating the first big move?
Yes, it can only be explained that way. New England Complex Systems Institute published a research report on defining a bear raid. The odds were something like 400 million to 1 that it could have happened on its own. And that was a bear raid on Citigroup at the end of 2007. The odds of that happening on Lehman Brothers as it did in 2008 are astronomical. It could not have just happened.
Okay. All right. Which started the ball rolling. So who are the suspects that are most likely that did this?
Well, we know people, and can I borrow your
Yes, you
chalkboard?
May. Yes, you may.
We know, I did a motive, means, and opportunity analysis of what caused the crash. And I looked at the people who had the motive, and the people who had the motive, Islamic terrorists. I'll put it at the top.
Do they have the money to do this?
Muammar Gaddafi, when he was killed, they thought he had maybe $10 billion. Then they said it was $30 billion. Then it was 50. He had $200 billion in Western markets.
How much would it take to do what you're proposing?
Well, that's 4 times what Warren Buffett has. Warren Buffett can move the market.
Wow.
It's a lot of money. And so, we moved $1 trillion when we bought oil at $150 as opposed to $50 a barrel. It's $50 a barrel in January 2007. It's $150 a barrel in June 2008. That moves about $1 trillion into the sovereign wealth funds of the Middle East.
Okay.
So
number one, Islamic terrorists.
Yeah, and it would be state actors such as Iran. You know, Iran and Venezuela both receive enormous amounts of wealth from oil transfers, and they hate them. You know, they were joking. Chavez and Ahmadinejad were joking about getting a new bomb, and that got picked up by the media. But it could be Iran and Venezuela.
And so far, there's no doubt in my mind that these guys have the interest to doing it. Do you ever read Tragedy and Hope?
I have not, no.
Okay, the 1960s book, but it talks about how the world is being united together economic to be able to avoid the next tragedy, which would be World War III, and give the world hope. But the only thing that would stop this system from saving us from, you know, annihilation would be if there was somebody that didn't care about technology or the future or states. Islamic terrorists, they don't care about that.
Exactly
they don't care if
right.
they pound us all back into the Stone Age, and they go with us because they're already there.
That's right.
Okay.
All right, so it's our old Cold War enemies.
Russia?
It would be Russia. It could be the Russian mafia. You know, there's an interesting thing that was said by Hank Paulson in his memoirs. He said in 2008, the Russians approached the Chinese with a plan to destabilize the American economy by dumping our Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac holdings.
Say it again.
The Russians approached the Chinese at the Olympics in China, and they told Secretary Paulson about this, and he reported in his memoirs. They said, let's dump all our holdings of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and basically throw the U.S. economy into chaos.
I mean, as crazy as this sounds, and people won't believe this, this is basically, Kevin, if I'm not mistaken, what we did to the Soviet Union. We bankrupt the Soviet Union.
That's exactly right.
I mean, why does this sound so crazy and conspiratorial? It's what we did.
First chapter of my book, Secret Weapon, we tell the history of economic warfare. It happens all the time. It's happened throughout history. It's happened as recently. We did something with the Suez Canal crisis. Actually, President Eisenhower told the Brits, if you invade and take over the Suez Canal, we'll dump your bonds.
That's right.
We threatened that.
That's right.
So it is a part of history. We've just forgotten it since the Cold War ended.
Yeah. Okay. Next one.
Well, China being a part of that, the People's Liberation Army.
People will say, China needs us. They'll never do that.
Well, people should look, and I just put this on my blog, Global Economic Warfare, I will be tonight. The PLA may have staged a coup attempt last week against the Chinese government. So the question to ask is, which China? The businessman, of course, doesn't want to harm our economy. Absolutely. But the PLA absolutely is willing to do it if it advances their cause.
The PLA is on the record for a very long time. Get them. Take America down. Get them. It's very different than it's as different as George Soros is to me. And we're both Americans.
That's right. And the PLA has stated in that book that I showed you, Unrestricted Warfare, 2 colonels said a single stock market crash can destroy a country. And they also say, they use Osama bin Laden's name and George Soros' name on the same page like 15 times in the book. And they say if we could ever take Osama bin Laden and teach him the tactics of Soros, we'd have a hyper-strategic weapon capable of destroying the United States.
Okay, would you do me a favor, Kevin, because I'm running out of time here. We could put the last one.
Piggybackers.
What does that mean?
Well, there were about 10 different hedge funds, Soros being one of them, that actually profited from the decline in 2008. There may have been
So, in other words, for instance, MF Global, what I just described on MF Global, George Soros was not part of the bet. He didn't do that. He swooped in and helped save MF Global and made a huge upside.
That's exactly
so
right.
He's not necessarily planning it, but he piggybacks and he sees the trend and he goes.
That's right.
Okay. Will you do me a favor? Because we're running so far behind. Can you come back tomorrow?
I'd be happy to.
Okay. We'll have you in and maybe we'll spend the week with you kind of going through this piece by piece, because what you have is so, there's a lot of intellectual meat here to explain how they did it and what happened and why and how you can back these things up, that I'd like to spend our time with you and not be rushed. So we'll pick you back up tomorrow, if that's all right. The name of the book is Secret Weapon: How Economic Terrorism Brought Down the U.S. Stock Market and Why It Can Happen Again. You believe it's still going on? You think
I
it's
do.
over?
We're in a phase 3, which we describe in the book. And anybody who wants to find the book can find it at secretweapon.org.
Okay. Not in bookstores?
In Amazon,
okay.
Barnes & Noble, everywhere, but secretweapon.org.
We're in phase 3?
We're in phase 3.
You explain all the phases? How many phases are there?
3.
Okay.
This is the end game.
How long do you think we have?
It's hard to say. It could be 6 months. It could be 6 years.
Okay.